10 relationship traps. Trap number 5. Having kids before you're ready. Now this is a classic because this is damn near everybody. Everybody has kids before they're ready. Now how does that happen? Well, obviously you get caught up in the throes of passion, and you end up having sex, and you don't wear protection, and you have a kid. That's a given. Everyone knows that. Here's the issue with it. Okay? Once you have kids, those kids are a responsibility that rightfully so is put above yourself. Which means everything that needs to be prioritized in terms of your own peace and internal work doesn't get prioritized. Now, my take on that is, despite the fact that yes, you put your kids above you, I do believe it is best for every individual to prioritize their peace above everybody, and yes, that includes your kids. But that comes with the serious caveats. The caveat is, make sure that you can eat, make sure your kids can eat, make sure you all have a roof over your head. If those things are dealt with, then you need to prioritize your peace. This means before you get your kids up and ready for school, you need to go ahead and make sure you do whatever type of internal work, whatever your consciousness routine is in the morning, and get yourself centered and together. And you continue to do this each and every day consistently so you can continue to progress in your peace. That's what you do. Now, there's so much involved in all the types of internal work that you can do. There's so much. There's so many different techniques to be able to choose from. I'm not going to get into all the details of that. The point I'm making is that when it comes to having kids, it makes everything substantially difficult. So even if you commit to what I just told you, you're still going to deal with the difficulty of being able to maintain that, being able to maintain a routine that allows you to put time into peace before you deal with getting your kids up for school, before you deal with everything that comes with taking care of your kids, everything that comes in terms of taking your kids to the doctors, making sure your kids' diapers are changed, making sure your kids get to daycare, making sure you read to your kids, making sure you cook dinner for your kids. Okay, making sure you talk to your kids, making sure you treat your kids kindly, you pay attention to them, you give them eye contact, that you're being an attentive, available parent. There's so much that goes into it, and everybody lacks in almost everything. No one is really an adequate parent like that. They keep their kids alive, that's what most people do, but in terms of actually making sure their kids grow up with the tools to be able to be at peace, they don't do that. No, people tend to give their kids the tools to be able to make it in a capitalistic society, if they even manage to do that, which is good because you don't want your kids to starve and to be on the street. But the issue with having kids prematurely is you pretty much, if you don't know how to handle it properly, you essentially just gave up your life as a consequence, or at least you lost 18 years of it. Because let's keep it a buck. Once you have kids, that allows every distraction on planet Earth to keep you from being able to pursue or do any of the things you want to do for yourself. And here's the thing, when it comes to doing so much of what a person wants to do for themselves anyway, whether it's write a book, whether it's become a movie star or become a singer or make it big on Wall Street, do everything, make it big in Hollywood, be able to pop on social media. Everything is already much more difficult if you don't do internal work at that point. If you're going into any of that and you don't do internal work on yourself, then all you're doing is setting yourself up for falling into the throes of worlds that are just utterly superficial and devoid of any real meaning. But if you do put serious time into internal work, if you manage to get that kind of routine first, yes, you're better set to be able to do those kind of things. But guess what? If you have kids prematurely, then you can't put the kind of internal work in to get yourself into a better space to be able to navigate any type of industry that could bombard you with superficiality and with meaninglessness and get you stuck in bad depressive patterns of whether drug abuse or being around people that are just using you or splurging money, keeps you stuck in algorithms that just keep you creating content endlessly just to keep the algorithm happy and just to keep the paycheck coming. If you do internal work and you get yourself to a certain point, you're able to navigate any one of these industries, and you're able to do it with a level of depth and truth and grace that's otherworldly, to be honest. But this is what you're not able to bring into any of these industries if you're not able to put time into internal work because you have kids prematurely. So right off the bat, you're already having an issue because you just made it a lot harder to do consciousness work, a lot harder to do internal work on yourself because you have kids. And this is coming from a person that had kids before he ever put serious time into internal work. Okay, so yes, you can make it happen even if you have kids, but it is significantly harder. But what I'm saying is if you wanted to make it in any industry, if you wanted to become a successful author, if you wanted to become successful on social media, if you wanted to be able to have successful videos, if you wanted to get into the movies, if you wanted to get into news, if you wanted to be a journalist, if you wanted to go back to college, all of this is already an issue if you go into it without doing internal work. People don't tell you that, but you have to understand, people in any of these careers, people with any level of success are miserable because they've lacked the internal work that should have predated any serious commitment into getting to any industry, into getting into journalism, into going back to school. Consciousness work, deep internal work is the secret to make sure that whatever career you are doing, whatever you are involved in, you are doing at your best, but not just doing it in terms of your best in how you're able to execute, but you are your best in terms of how you feel, in terms of the type of person that you bring into the situation. Having kids prematurely ensures that you're going to have to put time into taking them to doctor's appointments, into making sure they get to school, into making sure that they go to daycare, into making sure that their grandparents could take care of them, into making sure that you take them to the park, into making sure that you're able to take them to the movies, that you take them out to get school clothes, that you take them to doctor's appointments, that you have to take them in the middle of the night to the emergency room if they get sick. You have to make sure that you get them health insurance. You have to make sure that you have enough food in the house. You have to make sure that the job you work pays enough so you can feed your kids. You have to make sure that the place you live is big enough to accommodate them. There is so much that comes with having kids. Having kids prematurely is the ultimate distraction from peace. And once again, this is a man that's saying this, having had kids prior to ever seriously committing to peace. I was just fortunate enough to be able to make a serious enough commitment to make sure I didn't get stuck in some cycle that had me only doing things for my kids and not allowing myself to evolve as a human being and to grow my peace. It's something I took very seriously, but it's hard for a lot of human beings to take seriously because the distraction, which is what it is ultimately, is a distraction of having kids. Because the distraction of having kids is so intense. Yes, it's a distraction that's necessary to deal with. And yes, your kids are the world. They're everything. They obviously matter. But in terms of peace for yourself, if you want to talk about anything that can more effectively pull your mind away from being able to attain peace for yourself, it's going to be having kids prematurely. Because also, it's not just a matter of the things I already named in terms of having to take them to the hospital or having to take them to school or having to make sure you have enough food in the house and that you work the right kind of job and all that stuff. It's being able to give them attention beyond that. We're talking about those moments when you're just able to sit on the couch and have a conversation with them. We're talking about you being able to read them a bedtime story. We're talking about you being able to go out for walks with them. Talking about being able to spend quality time with the kids, being able to sit back and watch a movie and actually being able to enjoy it. See, here's the thing about it. If you don't put deep internal work in, which having kids prematurely can distract you from, when you have any of these moments when you're spending time with your kids, that time is going to be tainted by the fact that your full self isn't there. Only half of your attention is on what you're doing with your kids. The other half of your mind is on the work or what somebody said to you over the phone at some point in time, or what your mother asked you to do, or your father needs you to do, or your brother or relative, or your wife's relative, or your husband's relative, or so on and so forth. All your attention is never on your kid when you lack internal work. You have to understand, when you put in deep internal work, this allows you to be a better parent for your kid because they get to have the whole of you pay attention to them when you are involved in conversations with them or spending time with them in any capacity. But the irony of this is that having the kid prematurely keeps you from being able to get to a point, or at least makes it more difficult to be able to get to a point where you can put in the type of internal work that will allow you to be a more full, more present, truer version of yourself to be available for your kids. You are essentially giving your kids a lesser of yourself if you have your kids prematurely. If you don't have your kids prematurely and you're able to put in an adequate amount of consciousness work, of internal work ahead of time, then you'll be able to get yourself to a place where you can give them a version of a parent that very few kids are blessed to be able to experience. You can give your kids the world, and if you want to have kids, you should have kids. But understand, It's not just about having the kids themselves and feeling a certain amount of satisfaction from that. You have to ask yourself, who is the person that is coming into this parenting situation? Who are you going to be for your kids? Are you going to be someone that's just about dotting the I's and crossing the T's, or making sure you just check one thing off after another on the itinerary? Take your kid to school, take your kid to basketball practice, take your kid swimming, take your kid out to go play at the park, take your kid to go to Chuck E. Cheese, whatever it is. Or do you want to be a parent that's going to be there in a way that bonds with their kid and understands their kid in a way that few parents do? You get to that. You get to an authentic relationship that doesn't get fractured or strained or fall apart when your kid gets older. You get to that ideal relationship with deep internal work. And having a kid prematurely will make it more difficult to do this deep internal work. Do not ever underestimate the value of deep internal work, okay? And you're able to put serious time into deep internal work if you don't unnecessarily give up the time that you have available to you to commit to deep internal work by having kids prematurely. And with that, we're on to trap number 6.